Come on, why aren't you doing the thing? Give me a minute. Finally, there it is. There we go. Add to the table. Good. Mostly everything happens here. Alrighty. Welcome back to the live stream. Ooh. Ooh, that was uncomfortable. Yeah, okay, I get it.
Pretty comical because we...
Yep, that's great. Alright, tonight we're going to be doing some crafting, as per the usual, and we are going to be finishing The Willows by that old dude. Not too bad. Probably another 30 minutes in it.
Fall is on sale at Michael's. Shop logos on trending decor, lighting, floral, and more.
Being in their neighborhood. But who are aware? I asked. I forgot the shaking of the willows in the windless calm, the humming overhead, everything except that I was waiting for an answer that I dreaded more than I can possibly explain. He lowered his voice at once to reply, leaning forward a little over the fire, an indefinable change in his face that made me avoid his eyes and look down upon the ground. All my life, he said, I have been strangely, vividly conscious of another region, not far removed from our own world in one sense, yet wholly different in kind, where great things go on unceasingly, where immense and terrible personalities hurry by, intent on vast purposes, compared to which earthly affairs, the rise and fall of nations, the destinies of empires, the fate of armies and continents, are all as dust in the balance. Vast purposes, I mean, that deal directly with the soul, and not indirectly with more expressions of the soul. I suggest just now, I began, seeking to stop him, feeling as though I was face to face with a madman. But he instantly overbore me with his torrent that had to come. You think, he said, it is the spirit of the elements, and I thought perhaps it was the old gods, but I tell you now it is neither. These would be comprehensible entities, for they have relations with men, depending upon them for worship or sacrifice, whereas these beings who are now about us have absolutely nothing to do with mankind, and it is mere chance that their space happens just at the spot to touch our own. The mere conception, which his words somehow made so convincing, as I listened to them there in the dark stillness of that lonely island, set me shaking a little all over. I found it impossible to control my movements. And what do you propose? I began again. A sacrifice, a victim, might save us by distracting them until we could get away, he went on, just as the wolves stopped to devour the dogs and give the sleigh another start. But I see no chance of any other victim now. I stared blankly at him. The gleam in his eye was dreadful. Presently, he continued. It's the willows, of course. The willows mask the others are feeling about for us. If we let our minds betray our fear, we're lost utterly. He looked at me with an expression so calm, so determined, so sincere, that I no longer had any doubts as to his sanity. He was as sane as any man ever was. If we can hold out through the night, he added, we may get off in the daylight unnoticed, or rather undiscovered. But you really think a sacrifice would... That gong-like humming came down very close over our heads as I spoke, but it was my friend's scared face that really stopped my mouth. Hush, he whispered, holding up his hand. Do not mention them more than you can help. Do not refer to them by name. To name is to reveal. It is the inevitable clue. Our only hope lies in ignoring them, in order that they may ignore us. Even in thought, he was extraordinarily agitated. Especially in thought. Our thoughts make spirals in their world. We must keep them out of our minds at all costs, if possible. I raked the fire together, prevent the darkness having everything its own way. I never longed for the sun as I longed for it then in the awful blackness of that summer night. Were you awake all last night? He went on suddenly. I slept badly a little after dawn, I replied evasively, trying to follow his instructions, which I knew instinctively were true. But the wind, of course. I know, but the wind won't account for all the noises. Then you heard it too? The multiplying countless little footsteps I heard, he said, adding after a moment's hesitation, and that other sound. You mean about the tent? And the pressing down upon us of something tremendous, gigantic? He nodded significantly. It was like the beginning of a sort of inner suffocation, I said. Partly, yes. It seemed to me that the weight of the atmosphere had been altered. It increased enormously, so that we should have been crushed. And that, I went on, determined to have it all out, pointing upwards where the gong-like note hummed ceaselessly, rising and falling like wind. What do you make of that? It's their sound, he whispered gravely. It's the sound of their world, the humming in their region. The division here is so thin that it leaks through somehow. But if you listen carefully, you'll find it's not above so much as around us. It's in the willows. It's the willows themselves humming, because here the willows have been made symbols of the forces that are against us. I could not follow exactly what he meant by this, yet the thought and idea in my mind were beyond question the thought and idea in his. I realized what he realized, only with less power of analysis than his. It was on the tip of my tongue to tell him at last about my hallucination, the ascending figures and the moving bushes, when he suddenly thrust his face again close into mine across the firelight and began to speak in a very earnest whisper. He amazed me by his calmness and pluck, his apparent control of the situation. This man I had for years deemed unimaginative, stolid. Now listen, he said. The only thing for us to do is to go on as though nothing had happened, follow our usual habits, go to bed, and so forth. Pretend we feel nothing and notice nothing. It is a question wholly of the mind, and the less we think about them, the better our chance of escape. Above all, don't think. What you think happens. All right, I managed to reply, simply breathless with his words and the strangeness of it all. All right, I'll try. But tell me one more thing first. Tell me what you make of those hollows in the ground all about us, those sand funnels. No, he cried, forgetting to whisper in his excitement. I dare not, simply dare not put the thought into words. If you have not guessed, I am glad. Don't try to. They have put it into my mind. Try your hardest to prevent their putting it into yours. He sank his voice again to a whisper before he finished, and I did not press him to explain. There was already just about as much horror in me as I could hold. The conversation came to an end, and we smoked our pipes busily in silence. Then something happened. Something unimportant, apparently, as the way is when the nerves are in a very great state of tension, and this small thing for a brief space gave me an entirely different point of view. I chanced to look down at my sand shoe, the sort we used for the canoe, and something to do with the hole at the toe suddenly recalled to me the London shop where I had bought them, the difficulty the man had in fitting me, and other details of the uninteresting but practical operation. At once, in its
Exciting,
train,
isn't it?
followed a wholesome view of the modern skeptical world I was accustomed to move in at home. I thought of roast beef and motor cars, policemen, brass bands, and a dozen other things that proclaim the soul of ordinariness or utility. The effect was immediate and astonishing even to myself. Psychologically, I suppose, it was simply a sudden, violent reaction after the strain of living in an atmosphere of things that to the normal consciousness must seem impossible and incredible. But, whatever the cause, it momentarily lifted the spell from my heart and left me for the short space of a minute feeling free and utterly unafraid. I looked up at my friend opposite. You damned old pagan, I cried, laughing aloud in his face. You imaginative idiot! You superstitious idolater! You... I stopped in the middle, seized anew by the old horror. I tried to smother the sound of my voice as something sacrilegious. The Swede, of course, heard it too. The strange cry overhead in the darkness, and that sudden drop in the air, as though something had come nearer. He had turned ashen white under the tan. He stood bolt upright in front of the fire, stiff as a rod, staring at me. After that, he said in a sort of helpless, frantic way. "We must go. We can't stay now. We must strike camp this very instant and go on, down the river." He was talking, I saw, quite wildly, his words dictated by abject terror, the terror he had resisted so long, but which had caught him at last. "In the dark?" I exclaimed, shaking with fear after my hysterical outburst, but still realizing our position better than he did. "Sheer madness. The river's in flood, and we've only got a single paddle. Besides, we only go deeper into their country. There's nothing ahead for 50 miles but willows, willows, willows." He sat down again in a state of semi-collapse. The positions, by one of those kaleidoscopic changes nature loves, were suddenly reversed, and the control of our forces passed over into my hands. His mind at last had reached the point of beginning to weaken. "What on earth possessed you to do such a thing?" he whispered with a roar of genuine terror in his voice and face. I crossed round to his side of the fire. I took both his hands in mine, kneeling down beside him and looking straight into his frightened eyes. "We'll make one more blaze," I said firmly, "and then turn in for the night. At sunrise, we'll be off full speed for Camorn. Now, pull yourself together a bit, and remember your own advice about not thinking fear." He said no more, and I saw that he would agree and obey. In some measure, too, it was a sort of relief to get up and make an excursion into the darkness for more wood. We kept close together, almost touching, groping among the bushes and along the bank. The humming overhead never ceased, but seemed to me to grow louder as we increased our distance from the fire. It was shivery work. We were grabbing away in the middle of a thickish clump of willows, where some driftwood from a former flood had caught high among the branches, when my body was seized in a grip that made me half drop upon the sand. It was the Swede. He had fallen against me and was clutching me for support. I heard his breath coming and going in short gasps. "Look, by my soul," he whispered, and for the first time in my experience, I knew what it was to hear tears of terror in a human voice. He was pointing to the fire, some 50 feet away. I followed the direction of his finger, and I swear my heart missed a beat. There, in front of the dim glow, something was moving. I saw it through a veil hung before my eyes, a gauze drop curtain used at the back of a theater, hazily a little. It was neither a human figure nor an animal. To me it gave the strange impression of being as large as several animals grouped together, like horses, 2 or 3, moving slowly. The Swede, too, had a similar response, but expressing it differently, for he thought it was shaped and sized like a clump of willow bushes, rounded at the top, and moving all over upon its surface, coiling upon itself like smoke, he said afterwards. "I watched it settle downwards through the bushes," he sobbed at me. "Look, by God, it's coming this way. Oh, oh." He gave a kind of whistling cry. "They found us." I gave one terrified glance, which just enabled me to see that the shadowy form was swinging towards us through the bushes, and then I collapsed backwards with a crash into the branches. These failed, of course, to support my weight, so that with the Swede on top of me, we fell in a struggling heap upon the sand. I really hardly knew what was happening. I was conscious only of a sort of enveloping sensation of icy fear that plucked the nerves out of their fleshly covering, twisted them this way and that, and replaced them quivering. My eyes were tightly shut. Something in my throat choked me. A feeling that my consciousness was expanding, extending out into space, swiftly gave way to another feeling that I was losing it altogether and about to die. An acute spasm of pain passed through me, and I was aware that the Swede had hold of me in such a way that he hurt me abominably. It was the way he caught at me in falling. But it was the pain, he declared afterwards, that saved me. It caused me to forget them, think of something else at the very instant when they were about to find me. It concealed my mind from them at the moment of discovery, yet just in time to evade their terrible seizing of me. He himself, he says, actually swooned at the same moment, and that was what saved him. I only know that, at a later date, how long or short is impossible to say, I found myself scrambling up out of the slippery network of willow branches and saw my companion standing in front of me, holding out a hand to assist me. I stared at him in a dazed way, rubbing the arm he had twisted for me. Nothing came to me to say, somehow. I lost consciousness for a moment or two, I heard him say. That's what saved me. It made me stop thinking about them. You nearly broke my arm in two, I said, uttering my only connected thought at the moment. A numbness came over me. That's what saved you, he replied. Between us, we've managed to set them off on a false tack somewhere. The humming has ceased. It's gone, for the moment, at any rate. A wave of hysterical laughter seized me again, and this time spread to my friend, too. Great healing gusts of shaking laughter that brought a tremendous sense of relief in their train. We made our way back to the fire and put the wood on so that it blazed at once. Then we saw that the tent had fallen over and lay in a tangled heap upon the ground. We picked it up, and during the process tripped more than once and caught our feet in sand. It's those sand funnels, exclaimed the Swede, when the tent was up again and the firelight lit up the ground for several yards about us. And look at the size of them. All round the tent and about the fireplace, where we had seen the moving shadows, there were deep funnel-shaped hollows in the sand, exactly similar to the ones we had already found over the island, only far bigger and deeper, beautifully formed, and wide enough in some instances to admit the whole of my foot and leg. Neither of us said a word. We both knew that sleep was the safest thing we could do, and to bed we went accordingly without further delay, having first thrown sand on the fire and taken the provision sack and the paddle inside the tent. The canoe, too, we propped in such a the end of the tent that our feet touched it, and the least motion would disturb and wake us. In case of emergency, too, we again went to bed in our clothes, ready for a sudden start.
Here we go. Let's make a mess.
We again went to bed in our clothes, ready for a sudden start.
This is different.
5. It was my firm intention to lie awake all night and watch, but the exhaustion of nerves and body decreed otherwise, and sleep after a while came over me with a welcome blanket of oblivion. The fact that my companion also slept quickened its approach. At first, he fidgeted and constantly sat up, asking me if I heard this or heard that. He tossed about on his cork mattress and said the tent was moving and the river had risen over the point of the island. But each time I went out to look, I returned with the report that all was well, and finally he grew calmer and lay still. Then, at length, his breathing became regular, and I heard unmistakable sounds of snoring. The first and only time in my life when snoring has been a welcome and calming influence. This, I remember, was the last thought in my mind before dozing off. A difficulty in breathing woke me, and I found the blanket over my face, but something else besides the blanket was pressing upon me, and my first thought was that my companion had rolled off his mattress onto my own in his sleep. I called to him and sat up, and at the same moment it came to me that the tent was surrounded. That sound of multitudinous soft pattering was again audible outside, filling the night with horror. I called again to him, louder than before. He did not answer, but I missed the sound of his snoring, and also noticed that the flap of the tent was down. This was the unpardonable sin. I crawled out in the darkness to hook it back securely, and it was then, for the first time, I realized positively that the Swede was not here. He had gone. I dashed out in a mad run, seized by a dreadful agitation, and the moment I was out, I plunged into a sort of torrent of humming that surrounded me completely and came out of every quarter of the heavens at once. It was that same familiar humming, gone mad. A swarm of great invisible bees might have been about me in the air. The sound seemed to thicken the very atmosphere, and I felt that my lungs worked with difficulty. But my friend was in danger, and I could not hesitate. The dawn was just about to break, and a faint whitish light spread upwards over the clouds from a thin strip of clear horizon. No wind stirred. I could just make out the bushes and river beyond, and the pale sandy patches. In my excitement, I ran frantically to and fro about the island, calling him by name, shouting at the top of my voice the first words that came into my head. But the willows smothered my voice, and the humming muffled it, so that the sound only traveled a few feet round me. I plunged among the bushes, tripping headlong, tumbling over roots, and scraping my face as I tore this way and that among the preventing branches. Then, quite unexpectedly, I came out upon the island's point and saw a dark figure outlined between the water and the sky. It was the Swede, and already he had one foot in the river. A moment more, and he would have taken the plunge. I threw myself upon him, flinging my arms about his waist and dragging him shorewards with all my strength. Of course, he struggled furiously, making a noise all the time, just like that cursed humming, and using the most outlandish phrases in his anger about going inside to them and taking the way of the water and the wind, and God only knows what more besides, that I tried in vain to recall afterwards, but which turned me sick with horror and amazement as I listened. But in the end, I managed to get him into the comparative safety of the tent and flung him breathless and cursing upon the mattress, where I held him until the fit had passed. I think the suddenness with which it all went, and he grew calm, coinciding as it did with the equally abrupt cessation of the humming and pattering outside. I think this was almost the strangest part of the whole business, perhaps. For he had just opened his eyes and turned his tired face up to me so that the dawn threw a pale light upon it through the doorway, and said, for all the world, just a frightened child, "My life, old man. It's my life I owe you. But it's all over now anyhow. They found a victim in our place." Then he dropped back upon his blankets and went to sleep literally under my eyes. He simply collapsed and began to snore again as healthily as though nothing had happened, and he had never tried to offer his own life as a sacrifice by drowning. And when the sunlight woke him 3 hours later, hours of ceaseless vigil for me, it became so clear to me that he remembered absolutely nothing of what he had attempted to do, that I deemed it wise to hold my peace and ask no dangerous questions. He woke naturally and easily, as I said, when the sun was already high in a windless hot sky, and he at once got up and set about the preparation of the fire for breakfast. I followed him anxiously at bathing, but he did not attempt to plunge in, merely dipping his head and making some remark about the extra coldness of the water. "River's falling at last," he said, "and I'm glad of it." "The humming has stopped too," I said. He looked up at me quietly with his normal expression. Evidently he remembered everything, except his own attempt at suicide. "Everything has stopped," he said, "because—" He hesitated, but I knew some reference to that remark he had made just before he fainted was in his mind, and I was determined to know it. "Because they've found another victim?" I said, forcing a little laugh. "Exactly," he answered. "Exactly. I feel as positive of it as though I feel quite safe again, I mean," he finished. He began to look curiously about him. The sunlight lay in hot patches on the sand. There was no wind. The willows were motionless. He slowly rose to his feet. "Come," he said. "I think if we look, we shall find it." He started off on a run, and I followed him. He kept to the banks, poking with a stick among the sandy bays and caves and little backwaters, myself always close on his heels. "Ah!" he exclaimed presently. "Ah!" The tone of his voice somehow brought back to me a vivid sense of the horror of the last 24 hours, and I hurried up to join him. He was pointing with his stick at a large black object that lay half in the water and half on the sand. It appeared to be caught by some twisted willow roots, so that the river could not sweep it away. A few hours before, the spot must have been under water. "See," he said quietly, "the victim that made our escape possible." And when I peered across his shoulder, I saw that his stick rested on the body of a man. He turned it over. It was the corpse of a peasant, and the face was hidden in the sand. Clearly, the man had been drowned but a few hours before, and his body must have been swept down upon our island somewhere about the hour of the dawn, at the very time the fit had passed. "We must give it a decent burial, you know." "I suppose so," I replied. I shuddered a little, in spite of myself, for there was something about the appearance of that poor drowned man that turned me cold. The Swede glanced up sharply at me, an undecipherable expression on his face, and began clambering down the bank. I followed him more leisurely. The current, I noticed, had torn away much of the clothing from the body, so that the neck and part of the chest lay bare. Halfway down the bank, my companion suddenly stopped and held up his hand in warning. But either my foot slipped, or I had gained too much momentum to bring myself quickly to a halt, for I bumped into him and sent him forward with a sort of leap to save himself. We tumbled together onto the hard sand, so that our feet splashed into the water, and, before anything could be done, we had collided a little heavily against the corpse.
Yeah.
The Swede uttered a sharp cry, and I sprang back as if I had been shot. At the moment we touched the body, there rose from its surface the loud sound of humming, the sound of several hummings, which passed with a vast commotion, as of winged things in the air about us, and disappeared upwards into the sky, growing fainter and fainter, till they finally ceased in the distance. It was exactly as though we had disturbed some living yet invisible creatures at work. My companion clutched me, and I think I clutched him, but before either of us had time properly to recover from the unexpected shock, we saw that a movement of the current was turning the corpse round, so that it became released from the grip of the willow roots. A moment later, it had turned completely over, the dead face uppermost, staring at the sky. It lay on the edge of the main stream. In another moment, it would be swept away. The Swede started to save it, shouting again something I did not catch about a proper burial, and then abruptly dropped upon his knees on the sand and covered his eyes with his hands. I was beside him in an instant. I saw what he had seen. For just as the body swung round to the current, the face and the exposed chest turned full towards us, and showed plainly how the skin and flesh were indented with small hollows, beautifully formed, exactly similar in shape and kind to the sand funnels that we had found all over the island. Their mark, I heard my companion mutter under his breath.
Tryptophobia.
Their awful mark. And when I turned my eyes again from his ghastly face to the river, the current had done its work, and the body had been swept away into midstream, and was already beyond our reach, and almost out of sight, turning over and over on the waves, like an otter.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that'll be enough. What am I gonna do with the rest of you? I can't let you dry out. Don't know if you'll survive in a bag. These will take a little bit to dry. I need to put them somewhere. Ooh, I have a bag. Nice.
If you enjoyed listening today, be sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting the red subscribe button below. After doing so, click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to receive new content notifications. If you'd like to support our work and receive exclusive perks, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. To support us in other ways, see the video description for links to our Bandcamp and Patreon pages, our merch store over at Teespring, and further information relating to our releases on Audible, iTunes, and Spotify. And until next time.
Own a design studio. Get a really cool design contract. Realize you have to do a whole bunch of mathy business work before you can even start the not mathy design work. Use QuickBooks to see the big picture.
Shouldn't have
Use
rushed the
QuickBooks to
brain,
manage
but
cash flow. Add
it'll be
some more
fine when I
cash
get
to
it
your
all
flow.
done. It just needs to dry for right now.
Let QuickBooks do more of this, so you can do more of the things you love. Intuit QuickBooks. Manage and grow your business all in one place.
Top coat on you before I forget. Are you still not fucking dry? Oh, fine. Give you another day.
episode, we asked the question, was this woman abducted by a cannibal monster from Dead A Legend, or is the RCMP just that bad at their job? I'm Aiden Madison, welcome back.
You know, I was gonna say they're not that bad at the job.
Have you ever come across one of those stories of park rangers or fire lookouts who experience something unexplainable in the woods? They'll be out there minding their business and then hear strange sounds from beyond the light of their cabin or camp. A twig will snap, a strange cry may come from the woods, and the skin prickles on the spine as the narrator realizes suddenly that the only thing more unsettling than being alone in the forest is not being alone in the forest. The stories frequently differ in their details.
Very
but the one
good.
through
Yes,
line
you are
is that
absolutely right.
a wilderness professional ends up being chased by someone or something until finally, at long last, the protagonist reaches safety. Now, these stories are almost exclusively fictional, but there is a reason I use the word almost. Back in August of 2006, Stephanie Stewart was coming to the end of her 13th season at the Athabasca Fire Tower, a little outpost 8.5 miles west of the small town of Hinton, a rail-stop town of about 10,000 inhabitants and the last true population center before Canadian Highway 16 makes its entrance into the Rockies towards the border with British Columbia. Now, Stewart began spending her summers there in 1993, 5 years after taking a job as a lookout with the Alberta government's Office of Sustainable Resource Development. It was a job that, by all accounts, she absolutely loved, despite the fact that it meant months living out in the dense forests of western Alberta. You know, if you look at a satellite photo of the province, there's one thing you're bound to see,
part.
and that thing is
I'll put that
trees.
back, I guess.
With over 81,000 square miles of forests, Alberta's woodlands alone cover a larger land area than countries such as Ireland and Czechia, and there have been no shortage of mysteries amongst its dark woodland expanses. From monsters to murderers, Alberta has had its fair share of horror stories, and the latter are actually often the more terrifying. But that doesn't change anything about how vast and important these forests are, or how vital the job of a fire lookout is. And Stephanie Stewart was very happy to do it. From April through October, she'd sit atop the 50 or so foot tall structure, diligently reporting on weather conditions and potential fires. And even on days where hang gliders would stay grounded due to high winds, Stephanie was up in her tower, unfazed as it rocked and swayed. According to her friend Robin Slater, Stewart lived through the outdoors and genuinely enjoyed the solitude provided by the position, where Slater said her friend was happy.
A little bit smaller.
And even in her later years, Stewart's mind remained sharp. So in her free time, she would read, craft, and paint. On the other hand, she was physically healthy enough to put any 50-year-old to shame, and she'd sometimes go for walks on the nearby trails to get exercise, or on occasion she'd hop into her gray pickup to head into Hinton for supplies and conversation. But most importantly, she never missed any of the 3 daily check-ins that fire lookouts with Alberta Sustainable Resource Development are required to make, something that ASRD spokesperson Annette Bidniak described as completely out of character for her. So, when she didn't call in on the morning of Saturday, August 26, 2006, it very quickly rang alarm bells. And you know what else is ringing alarm bells lately? The amount of takeout that I've been eating, because I simply do not have the time to cook and go grocery shopping nearly as frequently as I should.
I surprised my bestie with a birthday getaway at San Clemente. I wanted to do something that felt special, but also low-key.
I've been eating because I simply do not have the time to cook and go grocery shopping nearly as frequently as I should. Now, the problem with that is, if I get takeout all the time, I'm not only spending entirely too much money, but don't look at the calories. Do not look at the calories on your takeout ones. And that's why I'm really grateful for the existence of Factor, which we've been working with them for a very long time now, and for good reason. From the first moment that they sent us a package, I was legitimately impressed with the quality of this food. And that's why we are partnering with them yet again to sponsor today's video. Now, don't get me wrong, I still like to cook a homemade meal every now and then, and it's great to go out for dinner every once in a while, but on those nights where I'm just kind of working late and I just need something that's ready to go, that I don't need to wait 30 minutes for or cook myself, Factor is awesome. It completely eliminates the hassle of prepping, cooking, cleaning up. You just pop it into the microwave and it's good to go in 2 minutes. And I know that largely due to the last year of our lives, there have been a lot of concerns out there about sustainability and conservation. And the fact of the matter is that with Factor, you can rest assured that you are making a sustainable choice. And that's because Factor offsets 100% of the delivery emissions and sources 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices. And I know what you're thinking, well, I'm probably going to get bored really quickly. How many meals can they possibly have? The answer is over 35. That was one of the things that I found most exciting about Factor when I first started using it, was that I didn't have to worry about selecting from the same 6 options all the time. Factor's chefs have a much wider recipe book than I do personally up here. So you get to choose from a menu of at least 35 options that are all chef crafted and dietitian approved, and every single one of them is fresh and never frozen. And if you've got a special diet, like you're trying to cut your calories, you're thinking about keto, you want more protein, or if you're vegan or vegetarian, they've got that for you. And you can also get add-ons, you can get snacks, they have breakfasts. I gotta be honest, the pancakes were pretty damn good. And while this might be utterly shocking, the filet mignon is great. Those gourmet options are usually a couple extra dollars, but gotta say, it's worth it. At the end of the day, as we've expressed over
Pause
and over
this.
again,
I'm gonna go
we
spray
try
paint
to
those
only partner with
horns
brands
again.
that
I'll be right
we
back.
genuinely
Okay.
love. And Factor
Back in a few minutes. Keep an eye on the hot glue gun for me, would you? Make sure it doesn't burst in the flames or something. That's annoying as fuck. Oh. Give that a few days to dry. Anybody here? Anybody care?
Is one of them. So, if you would like to give Factor a shot and try the same experience that we have had here at the Lodge, you can head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code LORELodge to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That is code LORELodge at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. When Stephanie Stewart failed to check in on that fateful Saturday morning and to answer a number of calls from her colleagues, a supervisor headed out to Athabasca Lookout Tower to see what was going on and hopefully locate the 5-foot-tall, blue-eyed, and gray-haired 70-year-old. But when they arrived, Stewart was nowhere to be found. Her gray pickup remained parked outside, and inside of her cabin, a pot of water sat simmering on the stove. The ASRD contacted police, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police began and search procedures. Teams were dispatched to explore the woods in case Stephanie had wandered off for some reason or another, while other officers searched her cabin for some sign of where she had gone. But then something very out of the ordinary happened. They almost immediately began a criminal investigation. Now that's strange because in most of the Canadian cases we've covered, the RCMP has been absurdly reluctant to consider foul play. For example, when Bart Schleier disappeared 2 years earlier in the Yukon, the Mountie spent an hour poking around his campsite before deciding he must have journeyed 20 miles overland to the nearest settlement of Stewart's Crossing, despite the fact that all of his supplies had been left at camp. When his friends performed their own search and located some of his belongings, and a follow-up revealed bloody clothing and a few scattered body parts, the RCMP chalked it up to a bear attack. And even after conservationists and wildlife experts told the Mounties that it seemed very unlikely he was attacked by a wild animal, and his friends noted that he used to track and tag Siberian tigers for a living, the RCMP still refused to investigate a potential homicide. 4 years after Stephanie's disappearance, when Amber Tuccaro vanished from a motel outside of Edmonton after being picked up by a strange man for what was reportedly a date, the RCMP not only failed to launch a search effort, but they also took her off of the missing persons list because an anonymous phone call informed them that she was safe and sound. At the time, they were actually sitting on a phone call that she herself had placed the night she was abducted, which was recorded because she called her imprisoned brother while being kidnapped. Something she likely did because she knew that phone call would be recorded. Now, she was eventually found deceased several miles east of where she'd last been seen, and the RCMP never found her killer. So that brings us to the question of why, just days into the search for Stephanie Stewart, a woman who lived in the woods and had completed such feats as solo cycling across Canada and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, did the police begin looking into such a possibility? Well, on August 31st, 2006, the Red Deer Advocate published an article in which they explained that RCMP Corporal Al Frazier said that to protect the investigation, he couldn't reveal exactly what may have made police think Stewart is a victim of foul play. What he could say was that they'd ruled out an animal attack or a medical condition which would have caused her to wander away from the forestry tower, and that 2 pillows with blue pillow slips, a burgundy bedsheet, and a Navajo-patterned quilt were missing, along with the gold watch which the Edmonton Journal reported she kept for sentimental reasons. So all of this is just kind of weird. You know, the pot of water left simmering on the stove suggested she had left suddenly, and yet a bunch of bedding was missing. The missing items suggested Stephanie had not left on foot, and yet
Somebody else left the pot of stove
all of
on.
that was suspect, but also potentially explainable. But as it turns out, the RCMP was holding something back from the public, as up to 100 volunteers and forestry workers, 3 helicopters, trucks, and all-terrain vehicles scoured 7,500 square kilometers, that is 2,895 square miles of forest, and 4,500 kilometers of roads. Mounties were trying to ascertain the cause for one crucial piece of evidence. On the stairs leading to her cabin's porch lay a smear of blood, with no sign of animal predation, and no evidence of self-inflicted injury. It was clear that someone or something had attacked Stephanie Stewart. The big question was, who?
Skincare superpower for your shower. Hydrates, firms, smooths, brightens, evens. New Olay Body Wash.
That's life. That's what all
It was clear that someone or something had attacked Stephanie's stores. The big question was, who? In the immediate aftermath of Stephanie's disappearance, the police were looking for evidence of an abduction or potentially even a murder. Given that this happened in Canada, there is very little information regarding how the investigation worked once foul play became the leading hypothesis. We can make some inferences based on known procedures, but beyond that, it's pretty difficult to say what they actually did. If I were to make an educated guess, I would think that they probably worked to establish how someone could have gotten in and out of the area, and unfortunately, that's actually not as easy as one might assume. The Lookout Tower is approximately 5 road miles from the nearest highway, that being Highway 40, or a little less than 2 miles through incredibly dense forest if you attempt a straight line. Getting there on foot is possible, but getting out with the body, the blankets, and the pillows, all without leaving a trail, seems a bit insurmountable. That suggests that a vehicle was used, in which case the most obvious route is the twisting gravel road leading to the tower, which had recently undergone improvements to make it more accessible to vehicles. Prior to that, the area was only accessible via ATV, but that kind of vehicle also adds some other ways of getting there. While the Lookout Tower is directly connected to the highway by road, another way off of Highway 40 is Pepper's Lake Road, which is less than a mile south of the Lookout Tower. And if you follow that path to the northwest, it eventually does get to a point where a vehicle would have to be at least off-road capable, but it also leads you into the mountains, or you can get back to Highway 40. If you follow it into the mountains, it leads into Rock Lake Provincial Park, which it seems is only accessible from the east, where its main road connects with Highway 40 about 20 miles to the north of the turnoff for Athabasca Lookout. So, with multiple ways in and out by vehicle, both of which would be drivable for something like a Jeep or a sufficiently outfitted pickup, and the fact that the assailant did not take Stephanie's truck, it seems most likely that her attacker drove there in his own vehicle. So the question then becomes why somebody would do this. And considering that Stephanie disappeared sometime after a phone call with her daughter Lori on the night of the 25th, it's unlikely that she was attacked by someone walking either from the highway, the nearby Nordic Ski Center, or either of the hiking trails leading from William Switzer Fire Tower Trailhead and Jasper Lake Campground. And that suggests that this was not a crime of opportunity, but something premeditated, though it's hard to see why anyone would want to kill her, a sentiment shared by her daughter Lori. None of the papers mention anyone who might have reason to harm her, nor any potential romantic partners with whom a fight could have turned deadly. The reality may very well be that the perpetrator didn't actually intend to kill Stephanie. They may have either overheard her mentioning her gold watch in town, or simply assumed that somebody living out here might have something of value. If that's the case, then a rather nonsensical murder becomes a very understandable robbery gone wrong, and the only remaining issue is that of who did it. We know that Stephanie had been working at Athabasca for over a decade, and there were certainly plenty of people who knew that there was a 70-year-old woman living all by her lonesome several miles from the nearest residence. In addition, a September 2006 article in the Edmonton Journal cites local resident Louise Benbow as saying that there was a horrible problem with crack cocaine in Hinton in recent years. Calvin and Cheryl Bauer, owners of a bed and breakfast at the junction of Highways 16 and 40, held the same concern, with the Journal reporting that they were worried about the drugs that had followed the big wages of the oil and gas sector into the Hinton area. And Cheryl was quoted as saying that they had a suspicious death across the highway 2 or 3 years ago, and in that case, this was connected to methamphetamine. Now that could certainly explain the situation, as addict used this as an easy way to screw some money for drugs. Someone could have made their way to the cabin that night, tried to rob Stephanie, and then found out that she was surprisingly spry for her age, only to actually kill her in the struggle. The blankets and pillows are a little bit harder to explain, but they could have been taken either to distract investigators by making them think that she went camping, or alternatively, they could have been used to hide her body in the backseat of a car or the bed of a truck. Either way, there is an explanation that does not conflict with the rest of the suggestion. Then again, there's the pot of water. If whatever happened to Stephanie occurred the prior evening, then the water would likely have evaporated by the morning. Since it was still simmering, that suggests the attack happened that very morning, especially if the supervisor had to drive out from the ASRD offices in Edmonton, though it's not clear where the supervisor actually was located prior to checking in that morning. Either way, it certainly narrows the timeline, but not in a way that makes it impossible for someone to get there, commit the crime, and then get out of town. Unfortunately, it is hard to say if the police managed to find any suspects, if they cleared everyone, or if they just didn't bother to try, because Canadian law enforcement is not forthcoming about case details even on 20-year-old cases. And if we just look at the case in 2005, took over a decade to tell people about the smear of blood. That came out in 2018. However, one man was brought up as a potential connection years later. Travis Vader, who was convicted for the 2010 murder of septuagenarian couple Lyle and Mary McCann. According to Canadian outlet Global News, the McCanns were last seen fueling up their motorhome in the town of St. Albert, north of Edmonton, on July 3rd, 2010. Their bodies were never found, but their burnt-out motorhome was, and a friend of Vader's testified that he showed up later that same day driving an SUV, matching the one belonging to the couple. In addition, the keys to the McCann's SUV were eventually found in the bed of a stolen, burnt-out truck that a witness said Vader had been driving several months after the murder. Investigators also determined that on the day of the murder, several calls and text messages were sent to Vader's former girlfriend from the McCann's cell phone from the Edson area, where the motorhome was eventually located. Other evidence later led to a second-degree murder conviction, only for the judge to downgrade the charge to manslaughter after criticism over his use of an archaic, no longer valid law allowing for second-degree murder charges if the killing occurs during the commission of another felony. So, due to the similarity of the victims, the possibility that both were robberies gone wrong, and the location of both attacks near or along Highway 16, also known as the Highway of Tears due to the many First Nations women found murdered along its western stretch, some considered it possible that Vader may have been responsible for Stephanie Stewart's disappearance as well. Unfortunately, but honestly not unexpectedly, the RCMP has been unable to find any evidence linking anyone, even Vader, to the crime. In any case, the RCMP found themselves at a loss. There was enough evidence for it to be obvious that Stephanie's disappearance was the result of a crime, but Mounties couldn't get any further than that. And because the RCMP doesn't like to share, nobody else can pick up the case unless they're invited in. Conveniently, this also prevents anyone in the media from identifying and criticizing their failures, of which there are so very many. Now, officially, the authorities consider Stephanie Stewart to be a victim of homicide, but they have never found a body, nor have they identified a suspect to the public. That said, there is another less traditional possibility, and it has to do with the name of the watchtower itself. Athabasca Lookout Tower is probably named for the nearby Athabasca River, which itself flows from Lake Athabasca to the far north. It is from this body of water that the Athabascan peoples received their name, though they much prefer to be called by a term of their own language, that being Dene. As with many Native American tribal groups, the ethnonym comes from their word for the people, with Athabascan actually being an exonym based off of the Cree language term for the lake. And while there certainly were Dene people near Lake Athabasca, this was by no means the extent of their territory, ranging from the mountains of western Alaska to the shores of the Hudson Bay, and from the Arctic Circle to southern British Columbia. The Dene were one of the most widespread cultural groups of the New World. In addition, at some point in pre-colonial history, one large Dene tribe underwent a long migration to the south, and they would eventually come to be known as the Navajo and the Apache. Another still formed a pocket group in Washington and Oregon. But it's through the northern Dene speakers, the Nahanni, Chippewayan, Dunetza, and others, that we come to the topic of this chapter. You see, there are many legends amongst the natives of this continent which speak to wild men who live off in the forests and mountains beyond polite society. In some cases, the storytellers are clear that these wild men are humans just like you and I, though at an earlier stage of civilization. In others, however, something more mystical is at play. And one such case is the Wachuge, a cannibalistic monster of Dunetza legend which derives from ancient myths held sacred by that people. According to American anthropologist Robin Wrightington, Dunetza myth cycles tell of a time when giant animals hunted and ate people. These animals behaved like people, and the people were compelled to be their game. They're referred to as wolverine person, spider person, beaver person, frog person, etc. And in the end, cultural hero Saya, after being granted supernatural powers by a disembodied voice while he lay dying on a deserted island, manages to defeat the animal people.
God love that disembodied voice power.
Upon reaching puberty, the boys of the Dunetza tribe would go off into the wilderness and embark on a vision quest, wherein they would, if successful, speak to one of the medicine animals. This animal would give them a power as well as a taboo, which is bringing up a lot of vague memories about Irish mythology from my days as a medieval studies student. The taboo was always something that they were not allowed to do, always related to the particular medicine animal which contacted the man, and each was specific to the individual. So if the individual were to break his taboo, which acted as something of a power limiter, then he risked becoming too strong, and this in turn could bring devastation to his tribe. One example given by Ridington came from his time amongst the Donetza, while he was driving with the Donetza prophet or dreamer Charlie Yehi, and turned on the car radio to country and western music. But as soon as it began playing, a young man in the car with them reached over and turned off the radio, an action he found most unusual since most Donetza enjoy this kind of music and normally would not interfere with another person's choice. He asked why the younger man did this, and he replied, "Old man, he don't like that." At the time, Ridington was not fully aware of the Wachuge legend or how it worked, and so he remained somewhat puzzled. But later on, when he was informed of what happens when someone becomes too strong, it all suddenly made sense. You see, the reason Charlie couldn't listen to country had nothing to do with music tastes or cultural difference. Instead, it was the fact that his medicine animal was the spider, and therefore his taboo did not allow him to listen to any sound made by a stretched string or hide, and hence he could not hear guitar music. Ridington also related a story told to him about Charlie, in which the prophet had been in a cafe in town when the jukebox began playing guitar music, and he had begun to get too strong. As a result, he had to be ushered out by his companions, all of whom were aware of his taboos as well as those of others. When in doubt,
That's a creative one.
explains, it is expected to ask if it is all right to act a certain way or offer a certain food to a person whose powers are unknown to them.
Secret. It has powerful ingredients that fight odor-causing
That's
bacteria
interesting.
for all-day protection.
Alright, stash char's done. There we go.
Are unknown to them. But in the case that someone accidentally broke a taboo, there will not always be some kind of transformation. Although at times I inadvertently violated personal taboos and thus became aware of them, Ridington writes, these violations were not interpreted as intentional affronts and hence did not trigger the otherwise automatic response. The same was true of children, and thus newcomers and most white people were treated in the same way. But this did not cover all white people. For example, another native man from the Donetza tribe by the name of Gumbi told Ridington of a story where a white woman tried to take his picture with a flash camera. Now in this case, the woman was well acquainted with the tribe and knew about their taboos. And so Jumbi, being under the guidance of the Thunderbird, had to act quickly, diving under a set of blankets.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits. Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived in a rabbit hole with their mother underneath a large tree.
Any more things? I don't think this will stick if I put it in. Kind of stick. I think it would be better still if I do individual ones. Sit up! There we go.
In order to escape the flash and avoid becoming too strong, because becoming too strong meant becoming a Wachuge. To explain the concept, Jumbi told Ridington a Wachuge story passed down through the ages, in which a Wachuge kidnapped a young man, and the men of the tribe had to band together to go and rescue him, lest the Wachuge come for them all. In the story, about 100 Donetza were encamped together for the winter, and one night a young man heard someone calling to him from outside of his tent. The voice told him somebody wants to visit him. Though the boy was skeptical, he was also hungry, and this somebody might have food. But instead, he walked outside and found himself face to face with the Wachuge. Before he could react, the Wachuge lunged at him, grabbed him by the throat, and then threw the young man...
You mean your text? Question mark? Yeah, it's working.
over his shoulder to carry him back to his lair. The only witness to any of this was the young man's wife, who heard someone calling for her husband in the night. She hadn't fully woken up, but when several hours passed without her husband's return, she began to grow anxious. She woke some of the others, telling them somebody called my husband and then he went out. That was a long time ago, and I don't know where he is. So concerned, several of the men got up to search, but this young man was nowhere to be found within the encampment. Realizing something must have been gravely wrong, they woke everyone up, lit torches, and began to look for tracks leading to or from the camp. A short while later, they came upon a set of large tracks, and they understood what had happened. They knew darn well that he had taken that man, Jumbie told Ridington, and the men of the camp feared that if he's taken one, he will take every one of us. So they gathered together and came to the conclusion that they must follow the tracks, kill the Wachuge, and hopefully rescue their friend. Now, the younger men of the group were filled with confidence, boasting that they alone could handle the monster, whereas those of middle age didn't really argue, knowing full well that the younger men were likely to be humbled, and that those of more experience would be there to step in when the time came. It wasn't long before they came across the Wachuge's camp, and they quickly realized that one aspect of their mission had already failed. The cannibal had already killed his quarry and was roasting him on a spit over a campfire.
Ouch.
There are further details that I won't include as they're quite graphic, but you get the picture. But the good news is that this had the Wachuge's full attention, allowing for the posse to circle around behind him for a sneak attack. First, one of the young men snuck up behind the monster, then leapt onto his back in an attempt to wrestle him to the ground. And not only did that not work, but the Wachuge actually managed to reach around, grab the young man's arm, and toss him into the fire, and it's implied that this was fatal. So, as everyone had expected, the task of finishing off the monster fell to one of the older men, well, the not elderly, but, probably like 30s or 40s, who wrestled the Wachuge for an hour before finally he was able to get the upper hand. Grappling with the cannibal, he placed one hand around its neck, the other around its leg, and in a scene out of Mortal Kombat, brought the Wachuge's back down across his knee.
Mortal Kombat!
The Wachuge was unable to move or fight back as he was hefted once more and thrown into the fire, where he screamed, not in pain, but in anger, until his icy innards finally melted, and at last he fell silent. But of course, brute strength wasn't the only way to kill a Wachuge. One could succeed in doing so through trickery as well. In a story told by a man called Aku, a young man defeats a Wachuge by fooling him several times. Now, I debated summarizing the story, telling it as written, or rewriting it in a way that remained faithful to the text as I just did, but honestly, I really liked the way I did it the last time I talked about the Wachuge, so I'm going to use an edited version of that script here as well. And when I say edited, I mean it is edited. This is not the same as the first time I covered this. First, however, I should note that while the Wachuge in Jumbie's story is more of a nomadic hunter, the one in Aku lives in a well-known spot, so well-known that everyone is aware a cannibal lives at that lake, and yet they still go to the lake. Why do they still go to the lake, you might ask? Well, the lake is teeming with fish and they are hungry. The Wachuge, of course, having the appearance of a man, would welcome the travelers to the lake, and then he would offer them some of his fish, like, hey, you guys hungry? You want some salmon? But because this Wachuge was also a medicine man, it was evil magical salmon served on plates made out of wood, and the plates had monsters carved in them. There's not a ton of clarification here, but Aku did say that the Wachuge would dream evil dreams and then carve his dreams into the plates, so I suppose that's how this functions. In any case, he is a medicine man who serves fish to people on plates that he carved runes into, and then the people die. So it sounds like he was using magical plates to kill people and then eat them.
And then suddenly, the salmon on the plate suddenly turned into a man, proclaiming that he was 5,000 years old.
This is not the 5,500-year-old salmon story. Do not bring Fenton into this.
Any chance that there is an opportunity to bring Fenton into it, why wouldn't we bring Fenton into it? It's Fenton!
It is Fenton. Anyway, there was a boy who knew of this lake, and that boy and his grandmother were hungry, and they knew of the monster man by the lake. So they decided they were going to go to the lake that had many fish, and they were just going to go stay at a different part of the lake with the many fish. And this was a foolproof plan, until it wasn't. Now, as you might be expecting, the boy was very aware of the monster, and being a boy, he was very curious, and he had a little something up his sleeve, too. You see, according to the story, he was half buffalo. And not in the sense that he was guided by the buffalo spirit. This kid was legitimately just half buffalo. So the buffalo boy goes to see the cannibal man, and the cannibal man feeds him some fish, but half buffalo boy, he doesn't die. No, half buffalo boy here, he's like Thor drinking out of the horn that drains the sea. He's just going. He is downing fish. He is like Rasputin drinking that poison wine. Like, this guy is the Joey Chestnut of trout. And as it happens, because the boy was half buffalo, he could eat as much fish as he wanted. Now, it has to be understood that the Wachuge was very confused by all of this, to the extent that he straight up asked the half buffalo boy, "How come you don't die? All the other people have died." The half buffalo boy was something of a jokester, so he told the cannibal, "Why, I'm not filled up yet. I thought you were just feeding me. I didn't know you were trying to kill me." So, to get caught on that the half-buffalo boy could have as much fish as he wanted, because that's just how the rules of the universe work, he demanded that the half-buffalo boy throw up the fish so that he himself could eat it. Instead, the half-buffalo boy just threw up a tiny green frog, and the Wachuge ate the green frog. Now, this was something of an Uno reverse card, because upon eating the frog, the Wachuge becomes catatonic. He's not feeling well. That's tummy ache. So he sits down, and the boy goes back to his cabin with his grandma. But a little bit later, the Wachuge's wife comes looking for the half-buffalo boy and is like, "Hey, fix my husband, you broke him." Now, the buffalo boy comes back, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll fix the Wachuge, don't worry about it." But instead, he takes 2 sticks out of the fire that have blackened ends, and he just jabs them into the Wachuge's neck, which kills him. And then he tells the cannibal's wife, "Well, I can't fix this man. He's already dead." I want to be clear that I recognize how seriously these stories are taken, and I don't tell it this way to deride these legends in any way. I simply imagine that some of the details of this particular story must have been told with a grain. In truth, I find all of these stories fascinating, and I wish we were able to preserve more of them. So, on the off chance that you, the viewer, have stories like this from your own culture, things that typically don't make it outside of the community, I would be more than grateful for the opportunity to preserve them for future generations.
My hair is very thick, very long.
Where is that jar?
Tangles my hair for less breakage.
New Oreo Cakesters.
It down, but
Now
could've.
in a deliciously soft cake.
Future generations. But for the moment, you may be wondering 2 primary things. One is how to become a Wachuge, and the other one is
Where's the jar?
what on earth does this have to do with the disappearance of Stephanie Stewart? You may be asking, does this guy really think...
Oh yeah, I forgot he was going on a missing
No, I
persons
think it was
rant.
probably a robbery gone bad, and that until further evidence to the contrary is provided, we should consider that to be the most likely option. But it just so happens that stories like this provide an excellent opportunity to talk about the folklore of a region, as I would imagine that in the not-too-distant past, this disappearance would be looked at as something supernatural. Therefore, putting it into the context of those kinds of legends helps us to understand where some of these tales may have originated, and to better understand our ancestors, our neighbors, and our world. But as for how one becomes a Wachuge, Ridington does actually give us an example in the case of a man named Asa. Asa was in his 70s and had fathered several children with a woman in her 30s. Unfortunately for him, she eventually left him for a much younger man, but he still got to see the children and even had custody of their youngest daughter, a 5-year-old girl. Now, because Asa was so old, he wasn't able to hunt for himself, and he didn't have any younger members living in his household, so anybody who had fresh meat, that being any of the other hunters, when they had some, would bring him a portion. They would just care for the elderly in the tribe. One day, there were some people staying with the community who were not members of that community, and for some reason, somebody brought him meat that had fly eggs and flies buzzing around it. And this was a problem, because Asa's medicine animal was the frog, and his taboo therefore seems to have been that he could not eat flies or their eggs. However, because the food was given to him as a gift, and those who brought it had not asked if it was okay for him to eat it, his only option was to eat it based on the cultural rules of the tribe. So after this, he began jumping around on the bed and shouting and just generally acting irrationally, and everyone quickly realized, if we don't do something about this right now, that guy's going to become an immortal cannibal, or at least he's going to become extraordinarily violent and extraordinarily difficult to kill. According to the information gathered by Ridington, they become nigh immortal because their internal organs turn to solid ice, and thus they must be melted over a fire before they can be killed, as with Jumby's story. Of course, there is the alternative of being a half-buffalo man and feeding the Wachuge a special green coma frog, but that seems out of reach for the common man. Now, thankfully, the Wachuge transformation isn't quite as definitive as it is with the legend we compared this to a couple of years ago, that being the Wendigo, or at least not in the way you might think. Both are caused by breaking a taboo, but the Algonquian taboo is somewhat universally, in the case of the Wendigo, greed. And greed causes the Wendigo to kill, or at the very least eat, his or her loved ones, neighbors. That act of cannibalism is what pushes the Wendigo beyond the point of no return. That is to say, once someone becomes a Wendigo, the only cure is death. In the case of the Wachuge, however, this is not necessarily true, and the taboo is actually inverted in a way. That is to say that somebody can become a Wachuge unintentionally, while the Wendigo has to choose that path rather than allowing him or herself to start. And this is perhaps best demonstrated by the cannibal act involved in becoming a Wachuge, which is the final stage of the transformation process. A man can be saved from this fate if, and my apologies if I am misunderstanding any of this, someone is able to calm him using a medicine blanket or medicine song before he bites off his own lips. So with the Wendigo, the act is eating someone else, while with the Wachuge, it's eating part of yourself. Now, in this case, Asa avoided being killed because his youngest daughter was able to go and get his medicine bag and wrap him in his medicine blanket and sing his medicine song to calm him down. Altogether, these stories tell us some important details about the Wachuge. We know that they are intelligent and capable of rational thought, even deceit, but we also know that they're still slaves to their cannibalistic desires. We also know that they can live either near people or deep within the wild. As I said with the first story, that was one that lived off in the wilderness, was not close to people, and was very much a hunter of men. But in the second story, there's something of a social aspect. When it comes to fighting them, it seems that fire is deemed in some way necessary, in that you either have to slow roast them so their icy organs melt, or you have to stab them with charred sticks after feeding them the coma frog. At the end of his article, Ryan suggests that the Wachuge is, at its core, mankind returning to the role of the giant man-eating animals. In other words, the Wachuge is a human being who has become one of them in spirit, and ultimately is overcome by their influence or their nature. So the man who becomes a Wachuge has been powerful, and as a result, he must now eat other people. And I do want to reiterate that I don't think that a Wachuge took Stephanie Stewart. I think it was probably a normal person. But at the same time, when you think about the situation, in a way, it probably was taken by somebody who broke a taboo and as a result killed other people. So there's always little things within these stories that you can see, whether they're meant to be understood as mythological, whether they're meant to be understood as allegorical or literal. There are these kernels of lessons we can learn from these stories that we're not that different from the people who came before us. They just thought of things in a somewhat different way in many cases. And that's not to say that there weren't any animals out there living amongst the inmates. There probably were. We actually come across these stories a lot all over North America. But I'd like to know what you guys think, as always. Do you think that I came to the right conclusion here regarding the idea of it being a robbery gone wrong? Do you think it probably was something mythological? What are your thoughts? And of course, if you have a story from your culture, I would love to hear it. I mean that completely sincerely. I have very much enjoyed the ability to go and explore other stories from people that are different from me. I think that's one of my favorite things about this job. And if you'd like to support us as we continue to do this job, there are a number of ways you can do so. You can get our merch, you can wear the Lodge, that comes from Bunker Branding. It is all American made, and it was designed by a mix of us and Bunker's graphic design team. We have 4 different t-shirt designs in a few different colors, we have a couple of hoodies, and I gotta say, it is all some of the most comfortable stuff I've ever worn. If you prefer to drink the Lodge, you can do so by going to tableauroastingco.com, linked in the description, and ordering Mount Pocono Perk. That is our signature coffee that I designed myself. I did not pick it off the shelf. I did not just rebrand something. I talked to the owner of the roastery, Matt Moore, and I said, hey, here's what I want. And he gave me what I want, and now we have a wonderful medium dark roast that is sophisticated enough to drink black and enjoy it. If you're that kind of person, I personally am. Or if you are the kind of person who likes to put cream and sugar in it, or just cream, which, to be honest with you, is also the kind of person I am. Or if you're looking to just directly support us monetarily, we do have Patreon, as well as YouTube memberships, though I will tell you that the Patreon gets you a few more perks, like some gifts after 3 months of membership, that the YouTube subscription does not come with. You also get access to our exclusive show, Liquored Lore, which we have to shoot another one of soon. That is basically I get drunk and talk about the stuff we usually talk about. We, of course, pick topics that are a little bit less sensitive for that, but you get the point. And when I say drunk, I don't mean I'm pounding like 20 shots of Fireball. Don't worry. It's more like 13. But if you're looking for even more Lodge, then you can check out our other channels. Seems like we're going to be launching a reaction and commentary show on the Aiden Mattis channel, and we're also going to be adding some shows to the Weird Bible, and of course there is the History Unhinged channel. So those are currently our 3 big ones. Weird Bible returns, actually, if you are watching this video, yesterday. If you're watching it upon premiere, the Weird Bible podcast returned yesterday. It will, going forward, be the final Thursday of every month, and we will selecting a different strange story from the Bible to go over. This is a show done by myself and Wendigoon, with Thornbury working as a producer and audience surrogate. So if you haven't seen it before, it is a show of Christianity done by Christians, but not necessarily just for Christians. We talk about these, in a very open context, and I don't try to preach at you. Neither does Isaiah. Our new show, History Unhinged, features Bell of the Takuyi and History of Everything channels.
Today, I'm making Taco Bell's newest menu item. Yeah, you heard that right. I'm not recreating. I'm creating from scratch new items that could and should go on Taco Bell menus nationwide. And I'm not going to be doing it alone. I'm going to be joined by Ben and Mike from Sorted Food, and we're going to have a panel of judges standing in the way between our items and Taco Bell menus. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the only show that's always on the menu. Speaking of menus, I've always wanted to get one of my creations on one. And I have tried everything, from food challenges, to offering to wash dishes, to offering up my services as a one-man interpretive dance troupe. So far, no success. But today, all of that might change. You see, Taco Bell, the GOAT of fast food, don't at me, recently challenged fans to remix and remaster their ingredients to create their own Taco Bell menu hacks. But with a twist. If their creation was good enough, there was a chance Taco Bell would actually add some of these fan creations to their menus. And hearing there's a chance is all the motivation I needed to head into my kitchen and start cooking up some ideas. However, after trying and failing to get on the Burger King menu last time, I needed to call in some backup. And since, I definitely need help in this endeavor, Ben, you're going to be joining me, and you're going to be my...
Excel, do what feels fresh.
Delicious. M&M's, more both together.
You're gonna be my, oh my god, you're gonna be my sous chef.
Sous chef I can do. Expert at Taco Bell, I cannot.
I'm gonna give you a little crash course into Taco Bell in just a minute. But before we do that, let me explain the rules of how this little experience is gonna go. Ben, a professional chef, and I, a certified septuple threat, will be trying our hands at creating 3 Taco Bell worthy items. A taco, a burrito, and a side. We're then gonna serve our creations alongside actual Taco Bell items and see if our panel of wonderful Judge and Tom can suss out our fake. If we succeed in tricking their taste buds, then that means our item is worthy of being submitted to TB. That's what the cool kids are calling it. And it'll be up to them to make the right decision. With Ben on my side, I was confident we could make the perfect dish to fool these dopes. There was just one problem. Am I correct in saying that you've never really had Taco Bell?
Well, we have done one video on the channel where we took a Taco Bell order and upscaled it, turned it into a gourmet dish, but I was not involved in that. So to this day, I have never eaten Taco Bell to my knowledge.
Ugh, I thought Tom was the only Brit who could disappoint me like that. Well, we can't let this stand. Time to give Ben a crash course on Taco Bell. Okay, so what we have in front of us are only some of the items that they'll be tasting later, but it's kind of a, Hall of Fame.
A sample.
Exactly, a Hall of Fame, all the greatest hits of Taco Bell, if you will. And lately, I've been thinking of my own greatest hits. Literally. I mean, physical hits my body has taken. I've been in my actually commit to self-care but not just say that I will era. And thanks to today's sponsor, ZocDoc, it's easier than ever before. See, I was a student athlete and amateur idiot for most of my life. I've broken more bones than I care to count, never stretched, and my diet, well, it's been mostly good, except for the fact that I now, for professional reasons, have to eat Taco Bell's entire menu in one sitting. I love my job. My stomach, not so much sometimes. It was all fine and dandy when I was in my teens and early 20s, but now that I'm in my 10th anniversary of my 21st birthday, I need to start trying to actually treat myself. And that's where ZocDoc comes in. If you don't know ZocDoc, they're a free website that helps you search and compare high-quality doctors for your needs. Whatever those needs may be, whether it's your eyes, your bones, your face, well, no, nothing can cure that. ZocDoc can help you find the right in-network doctor for you and book your appointment. ZocDoc makes it easy to book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers. With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by specialties and see reviews by verified patients so you can choose your best, most convenient care for you. You can even filter by who takes your insurance or how far away from you they are. When you found the doctor you need, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and instantly book a visit with just a few clicks. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. Best part is, it's all online. You don't have to call and stay on hold for hours only to accidentally hang up when that stupid elevator music finally stops. That was me before ZocDoc. So don't let your body get crickety-crackety like me. Go to ZocDoc.com/TheFoodTheorist or click the link in the description to find a top-rated doctor today. Thank you so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring us. Now let's bell this taco. Whatever that means. I can't explain why, but for some reason, I was super nervous watching Ben dissect and critique one of my favorite restaurants, as if I was the one making these dishes. And he certainly didn't hold back.
We're just kind of observing what we can learn from this. It's kind of
Structural integrity is not it.
It's stuck. You know, there's nothing falling out. It's not the most generous in terms of filling. At the moment, quite rubbery as a bread encasing, as opposed to perhaps crisp or floury or fluffy.
Exactly.
But hey, cheers.
As we sampled this amuse-bouche of Taco Bell goodness, we started to pick up on some tips we could use to really pull the wool over Tom and Mike's eyes.
There's just enough of every ingredient.
Just.
You know it's there, but not an overabundance of anything.
And that is key when we're talking about pricing.
I see a lot of creators, when they try and recreate menu items, they tend to overstuff it. They try and make it an actual portion of food, right? And that's not what we want. We don't want real portions of food. So moving on to the burritos. Now, the burritos are an interesting thing because they are.
I always judge a burrito on its density, on its weight. If it feels like a small child,
this word child.
The fact that it holds its form like that is worth remembering. The first one we've got some actual colour on.
Yeah.
Like all of these are, I'm going to use the word insipid.
100%.
This one though, different.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I just finished looking up.
And it
I agree.
works.
But as we dove mouth first into those insipid burritos, some cracks started to form.
Oh wow, that is dry.
I know she's not dry yet,
Draw out the moisture.
Yeah, wow.
but I can't help myself.
My mouth won't open all the way anymore. It's very.
I need purple. I want some purple on this one.
What's important to realise when we make ours is you had the dry end and I had all the sauce at my end. So it doesn't have to be equally distributed.
Exactly, and one thing to keep in mind to that point is usually behind the scenes, we usually have a kind of sour cream / sauce gun. It looks like a caulk.
What did he say?
C-A-U-L-K. All right, get your mind out of the gutter.
I think the ergonomics of creating fast food is a fascinating subject in itself. We did an entire episode reviewing fast food kitchen gadgets, so the kind of gadgets they use in the kitchens to basically make sure you get consistency and efficiency and all that. And even just the sauce guns, the squeeze, it gives you exactly the right dosage of splatter of condiment works every time.
But after trying our tongues at some tacos and burritos, it was time to finally show Ben Taco Bell's interesting sides, which for some reason include both sweet and savory items. Yeah, I don't know.
These are their kind of infamous nacho fries. Nice and wilty.
I was going to say a fluffy middle, but it's not. It's a wet middle. I don't know how they've done that.
The interesting thing to note here is that they're not all uniform. You have small bits, you have thick bits, you have thin bits, you have some that have rich seasoning, others that don't, which can play into our favor.
My overall thinking, I've had the great fortune of eating some phenomenal food in Texas. In fact, the Michelin Guide have just, celebrated Michelin stars all around the state. I've had the very great fortune of spending a couple of weeks eating phenomenal food in Mexico. So I have had Texan and Mexican food, and now I've had this.
I was wondering where you were going with this. Michelin recommended here is what he's saying.
That's not what I was saying. But hey, like all fast food, it serves a purpose and it hits a spot, and I think that's what's key. Can we hit that same spot?
Oh, and in case you're wondering, Ben and I's favorites ended up being the cinnamon twist, and the surprise hit, the limited time Cantina chicken taco. They should realize are fully insipid. It's time to start planning.
So menu item number 1, our taco item, we're actually going to model after an LA street taco. Very few ingredients, it's all about kind of the perfection and simplicity. So we've dubbed this the Sweet Heat Street Taco.
Nice.
Everybody likes some rhyming.
That'll it'll sell.
Right? It's catchy. And the ingredients that are going to go into this are a carne asada, which, again, very typical. Not something you often see on Taco Bell menu items, but they have done limited items before.
They use a lot of minced beef, right?
Exactly.
A cheaper option,
Yeah.
high margin.
And cost is actually going to be a big factor for our experiment today. Remember, the goal is to actually get Taco Bell to add our items to the menu. So we need to make sure that our creations stay within Taco Bell's relatively affordable price point. So that's going to be a hard pass on the Wagyu beef or the gold flakes. In order to stay on budget, we're going to keep our item below the price of its equivalent Taco Bell item. For example, the average price of a Taco Bell taco, at least here in Miami at the time of recording, is around $3.47 per taco. So our taco will need to come in below that if it's going to count. And that's where choosing carne asada might have been a risk. At around $2.25 a serving, we've kind of already blown a big portion of our budget on just the meat. Thankfully, we're making LA street tacos, which are known for their simplicity. So we shouldn't have to add too much to make a tasty taco under budget.
We'll also be using their Mike's Hot Honey Diablo sauce.
As theirs.
Exactly. Currently on the menu, that's where the sweet heat comes from. We'll also be adding some onions, tomatoes, sour cream, and the one kind of ingredient that isn't that common, cilantro.
Okay.
So very indicative of LA street tacos. Good thing is, it's a very cheap herb to put into tacos, so it doesn't bring our price too high up. How you feeling?
I feel like the cilantro is the one that runs the risk, because in an item that often stays hot, as it's being delivered, before it's being eaten, can wilt and go a bit kind of mushy. That's probably why it's not common, but I think that will give it a freshness.
In order to make an item that was really gonna knock the socks off of those Taco Bell execs, I knew I had to take some big swings when it came to my ingredients. Of course, we all know the meme that Taco Bell items are just the same ingredients rearranged. Blah, 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 blah. And while that isn't totally true, we will be keeping that rule in place. Yeah, at least in spirit. For today, at least 60% of the ingredients in our items have to come from something already found on the Taco Bell menu.
Okay, so we have all of our ingredients that are gonna go in our first taco item. We have Mike's Hot Honey Diablo sauce from Taco Bell. So this is actually on their menu right now. That's gonna provide the sweet heat. We have cilantro and onion and our carne asada right there, which we're going to just cut into strips and put into our taco, and hopefully...
I'm gonna be honest, Auntie, that looks good.
Well, hopefully if they don't look at it.
How are you? I don't know if you're still there anymore, but hello.
Cherry on top is drizzle some of the grease onto each taco, just so that they get nice and sloppy.
I couldn't help but observe when you were chopping, you were deliberately doing irregularity on the onion. An interesting choice.
It's because a lot of the Taco Bell locations actually cut their veg on location. And, it's a bunch of people that are doing it very quickly in the morning to prep. If you actually take a look at Taco Bell items, a lot of the ingredients are not, regular. All right, so let's get started with one of these. So these are actually tortillas from Taco Bell, because we want to make sure that they don't taste more premium.
And you've microwaved those with a damp towel so they are suitably soggy.
Exactly, and hopefully they'll actually dry up, so then they get a little bit hard, a little bit crusty. I think that's honestly too much.
It might seem strange that I'm skimping out on the juicy, delicious meat, but that's for two good reasons. One, as I mentioned earlier, carne asada is expensive. So in order to stay under our price point, we had to be pretty light on the portions. But secondly, as we saw earlier, Taco Bell isn't the most generous when it comes to portion size. So by being lean on the meat, that should fool the guys into thinking it's a genuine TV taco.
This looks good. I mean, it's proper shiny. It's got a good amount of sugar in it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's gonna help conceal the quality, because, your boy can't make something bad. So we're gonna try and just drizzle a little bit of this all along there.
Sweet street heat. I mean, the name sells itself.
Right, I feel like this is something that you would see in a commercial. Check out the street sweet heat taco. I know I said it wrong. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just press it and see right there. Kinda, we got the specks of color. Sure. And let's.
How it feels to chew 5 gum. Stimulate your senses.
And let's see.
You used skirt, which had a lot of the fat marbled through it, which all cooked out.
Yeah.
We've got the addition if we need it of grease in the pan.
And honestly, I think we might need it, but I'll give it a taste, because the sweet heat is really doing a lot of the work here, and it's covering up a lot of it. I think we should put a little bit more onion, just get a little bit more, but I think just a couple sad strips of meat is the way to go.
You see, it's not the amount of the meat, it's how you use it. But either way, Ben and I spent the next couple of minutes tweaking the final.
Okay, so we are getting ready for our judges to
test our first item, our taco item. How are you feeling?
Do you know what? I wasn't sure until you put all three next to each other, and it becomes a lot harder.
Let's hope that their palates and their eyes are untrained enough to be fooled. Just as a reminder, over there we have Mike and the guy from Game Theory, and let's get started. So here's how our little taste test is gonna go. Each round will serve Mike and Tom 4 items. 3 are items currently available on Taco Bell menu, and the 4th will be the soon-to-be available item created by Ben and I. After taste testing each item, Tom and Mike will decide which one they think is our favorite. If we manage to fool both of our British judges, we'll consider that a major win, and we'll automatically submit that item to be a potential Taco Bell menu item. If we don't manage to fool both of them, Ben and I will still earn 1 point for each person we do fool. If we manage to score 3 points over the course of 3 rounds, then we'll send all 3 recipes into Taco Bell HQ. But now comes the moment of truth. Over here we have our taco items, all 4 very real Taco Bell menu items. They are all in the same order, so enjoy.
They weren't lying when they said it's hard to tell.
You've got the tacos, we've got the bells.
So as a reminder, is this your first time having this many items from Taco Bell in general? Tell us a little bit before diving in.
We've had UK Taco Bell on the channel, where a chef then transformed it into something completely different. And I have to say, the wasn't a positive experience. So I'm looking forward to trying not only authentic Taco Bell, but also possibly leveled up Taco Bell.
Well, hopefully not.
Whereas I've had Taco Bell, it was a long time ago because I had it and didn't want it again, so thanks for including me.
You're welcome.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. I like the sauce. Yeah. Sort of spicy mayo.
Yeah.
It's
not
fine.
what it's fine. It's not what I expected though. Like I wouldn't have expected that from Taco Bell.
It's not very crispy, is it? Like it's taken on a fair bit of sog.
So how long has it been sat there? Was it from Santi's taco audio earlier, or have they made it soggy? If they have, that's impressive.
Strategy coming from that side.
Also, will they have shallow fried chicken here? I don't know what you're capable of. Okay.
This is sad.
Steak and onions.
This is so sad.
We're working at a 1/5 filling to tortilla ratio. Mate, at least you're working on a 1/6.
I'm working on very little.
Tortillas.
The tortillas.
No.
Best bit, the tortilla. There you go.
I will say Taco Bell is usually not enjoyed by 2 sober people in the middle of the day.
That's a fair point. Now this one is a beast. Is this?
The tortilla is different altogether. It's almost like a flatbread.
Not had much Taco Bell, but I have heard stories.
Flaming Cheetos.
Flaming Cheetos or Doritos.
This looks like what I'd expect from
And
Taco
that is,
Bell.
yeah, like look at that meat mess in the middle. The homogenous mess that is. That is awful.
I'm not really getting anything. It's quite dry.
That's what I mean. This is really bready.
I like it.
I like it. Not in this. I think I'd happily have something nicer in the middle of that.
You heard that right, folks. Tom doesn't like the Doritos Locos taco. Roast him in the comments. Thank you. On to the last taco.
Yeah, we've got that homogenous meat mess again in this.
Yeah, some mayo.
Sour cream, probably.
Yeah.
I would hope. I hope it's sour cream. It's not good.
No, I feel like the tortilla is slightly different. It's softer. It's warmer. And the meat filling is juicier. It's got more moisture than the meat filling in the last one.
But I wonder if that's because this is so bready.
Like a baby.
No, it's as much as this is so thick.
But enough deliberating. It was time for them to put their mouth where their mouth was, to see if they could spot our fate, and to see if we have our first item that will submit for Taco Bell's approval.
Put up the digit of which taco you think is the fake one. So 1, 2, 3, go.
4.
2.
Interesting.
All right, interesting. Okay, so I do want to hear very quick, what's your rationale?
For me, I felt like the filling was tastier. It was juicier. There was the sour cream, I don't think featured in any of the others, and I thought that added quite an interesting dimension. And so my logic and reasoning is that the 4th one was the one I liked the most, or the less least. Let's say that.
Less least.
That's fair. All right, Tom.
Again, it came back to it not being a homogenous meat mess. Now, it might have just been very well played by you to use the homogenous meat mess, as Mike sort of pointed out. This just felt so sad as a filling. It just feels like, I know Taco Bell is cheap. That feels insulting.
I think that's honestly too much. And the fake one was taco number 2.
Let's go!
The only thing worse than not having our first item automatically getting submitted to Taco Bell is the fact that Tom spotted the fake. I suppose using a premium cut of meat and skimping on the portions might have been a bit insipid of us, but no joke, as I'm writing this very line of the script, Taco Bell announced they're bringing back their cheesy street chalupa with steak, onions, and cilantro. Just saying, I was onto something. But we did manage to fool Mike, so we did earn 1 point towards our goal of 3 that we need to send all of our items to Taco Bell's head offices. But in order to do that, Ben and I are gonna have to head back to the drawing board and learn from our mistakes in round 1.
For menu item number 2, the burrito item. And we're actually going to use the main ingredient here, one that's not usually in their burritos, but it is on other parts of the menu. Potato. Okay, so instead of a meat-heavy item, we're going to go with potato-centric. We're going to have potatoes, cheese, a kind of queso dip that they have on their menu. Very simple, high margin.
And in order to give it a little bit more kick, we're also going to top off our burrito with some creamy jalapeno sauce and Taco Bell's fire-roasted corn and pepper blend. And you heard that right. I did say top our burrito.
Now here's where we're going to differentiate it and make them think that it's a limited time item. Instead of a regular tortilla, we're going to use a tortilla pocket. It's one of those things that a pretty bad fast food place might think is ingenious, but no one's ever asked for.
Handheld, convenient, it ticks the fast food kind of function.
Yeah.
But it's equally insipid and anemic.
There he goes, using those fancy words again. But enough SAT, time for scooping.
So I think we just do a nice quick 2 scoops of potato, 1 forkful of this kind of combination here of the corn and the roasted bell pepper, a little spoonful of the crunch dipped supreme sauce. There you go. Look at that, nice chunky. Why is it chunky?
No idea.
And then some tomatoes on top and top it with our creamy jalapeno. So we're gonna just kind of dump it in here and hope for the best.
Since our potatoes end up being much cheaper per serving compared to our carne asada, we can afford to stuff this burrito to the gills with potatoes. No sad burritos here, huh, Tom?
I'm quite excited. I think this is genuinely going to taste pretty good. Possibly too good, except for this.
I mean, look at that. Not only does it look delicious, it's also kind of shaped like a bell. Totally intentional and not something I'm noticing just now in the edit. All it needs is a name. How about the Pocket Go Potato Cheesy Melt? That sounds convoluted enough to be one of those limited time items, right? But the only question is, will it stand out too much from the other Taco Bell burritos in the eyes of Mike and Tom?
I don't know how they're going to play this, whether they go purposefully crap again, or now they're going to flip it on the other side.
Now that they've got us once.
So many games at play.
You use the word play and game. This is very serious. We're not playing.
No, I'm trying to get on a menu.
I'm literally the game guy.
Are you though?
You refused to say my name in the intro and called me the game theorist.
That's fair. And if you see the title card under his name right now, it is misspelled. So, moving on to the next round, we have our burritos. So we are getting, a little bit bigger, a little bit broader, a little bit better. That was it.
These look so upsetting.
Excel, do what feels fresh.
Mom and Dad and the twins getting ready for a scary movie. And Dad's not ready at all.
Buckle up, big guy. Does not get better from you.
M&M's. It's more fun together.
Oh, upsetting.
Bon appetit.
Thought you didn't say that anymore.
Buen provecho.
There you go. Thank you.
Never opened a burrito to inspect
Right. Well, I am noticing that only one of them is like toasted.
Like in the first round, we have a combination of limited time items, specials, classic items, all mixed and intertwined here. So you're welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Like Christmas morning for Mike. He's just unwrapping.
Right. Again, it's the homogeneous meat mess.
So flat.
I've had burritos and they are like stacked. This is just so sad.
Burrito literally means little donkey, right? Whereas these look more like roadkill.
Okay, I've got thoughts.
You have thoughts?
I think I've tasted that sauce before.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with having one
That's
bite.
enough. It's not vile or repulsive.
No.
It's just absolutely... This
is a pocket, which I'm intrigued by.
What is that? Slimy.
What does that taste? I can't even tell what that tastes of.
Red pepper.
There's a lot of red pepper.
It's almost like it's been brined. Like it's not fresh. Do you know what I mean? It's got that slime to it. It hasn't got the
There's
brine
potato
flavour.
in here.
Shut up.
I mean,
What is a
I guess you have to offer a vegetarian option. But why you wouldn't just put it in a normal burrito wrapper?
The sauce tastes of literally nothing.
You know what? I'm going to be an absolute savage.
He's just going straight in the middle.
Oh, that is.
He's getting more filling to bread ratio.
But we're gonna get demonetized for that.
I'm very impressed with your bite. Look how perfect it is. It's almost cartoonified.
You were bracing,
Yes.
I couldn't
Pick
tell
up
you
a
what's different
blanket.
from
Move
the
the paws and with a
Honestly,
brain.
I actually am just not sure how that's any different.
Right.
So this
Toasted. It's got to be delicious,
toasted
right?
and
the
feels-
Maillard effect.
and feels.
It's so
Anything
hard
else that
to
makes
like
you
have to be
noise?
silent on my own channel right now.
How does it feel like you have all your airtime?
No, for real. It's such a weird. I'm gonna have to.
We got something upstairs.
You don't like speaking to customer and I go, well.
This is more fried chicken. It's pretty much the same as the taco.
So again, it's that thing we were talking about earlier. Are they trying to trick us because they were like, oh no, there is actually fried chicken at Taco Bell, and now they've shoved it into this.
The chicken is a lot drier than we had in the last taco.
It's also just a weird thing you're having a burrito and this big piece of meat just sat in the middle of the burrito.
This is what I love, and we've recently done a lot of Find the Fake, and this is what I love, just watching people unpick, then put that together in completely different order, and then turn the jigsaw puzzle upside down and look at it from the other side.
And why is it a pocket?
Yeah, why's it got potato in it?
Right?
Do we think we have our guesses?
I think so.
All right.
I think
Count of three. You guys put up the number of your burrito that you think is the fake. 1, 2,
This is why I
3,
went-
go.
2.
One outfit when I paint.
Okay.
Works.
And the fake was number 2.
Yes. Okay.
Darn it.
I think what fell out of favour for us was your hope that they might recognise that potato filling other places on the menu, just not in their supreme pocket option.
Yeah.
But two newbies who don't know Taco Bell's menu well enough, like I didn't spot that was definitely a potential.
Ugh. Sorry that I thought I could have some faith in Tom that he's learned something from me since moving to the US. That's the last time I make that mistake. And you know, Tom has found our bluff in both of our first 2 rounds, and I cannot let him best me time or I'll never hear the end of it. But going 0 for 2 on that last round really hurts us. Not only does that mean that our pocket burrito does not get that automatic advancement, but if we can't trick both Tom and Mike in our final round, then none of the items we made today will even have a chance of making it to the Taco Bell menu, and my dream will be ruined. So instead of trying to create something brand new to try and fool them, we decided for our last item, we'd just take 2 already existing Taco Bell sides and smush them together. Item number 3, the final item to fool our judges, and that is going to be our side item, and that's none other than churro fries. So we're going to be taking their nacho fries and their cinnamon twist and kind of
Almost cut off the speaker.
I kind of like that idea.
I think it's a speaker. I don't know what exactly that thing is. It's gonna go back down into the chest though. We're never gonna see it again.
It might be a weird mixture. Weird enough that Taco Bell would think of it, perhaps. While it might be
Keep barking. At least I know you're working if you're barking.
we are just frying up some chips, as the Brits would say, and then coating them in a generous portion of cinnamon sugar. Since the cost of these
Come here,
ingredients are
use
so
your
low,
neck.
we can really throw caution to the wind when it comes to the price. An important thing to note is that we're not actually using nacho fries from Taco Bell to make our churro fries. Since the nacho fries already come pre-baked in their spice blend, that mixed with the cinnamon would not sit well with the stomach. But Tom's food poisoning is a dream of mine. I'm aiming to cement myself in fast food immortality. And what we want to do is just kind of haphazardly dump them all together so that not all of them have the same amount of sprinkling. Throw them in here where a lot of the sugar could go to the bottom. And one of the most important things that we try to do here is look at the nacho fries and look at the twist with grease in it and try and match that. So we're not going to drain these fries. We're going to let a little bit of the oil seep off, but really we want that oil to stay in there and get coated by the cinnamon.
I feel like this is the kind of thing that you'd expect to see at perhaps a steak fair. You've seen like those spiral potato chips that kind of unwind across a huge long stick.
Yeah.
Now that works with cinnamon sugar. So I feel like this might be believable enough. It will fall.
Things in here I don't
Because
understand.
my dream, as well as bragging rights with Tom, is on the line. All right.
Oh.
So we have our side items here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So it's a very,
If I can
very...
attach
I
it to
said
the
buen
base.
provecho. Let me finish.
Gracias.
You're welcome.
This is the saddest kid's birthday party I've ever been
This
to.
is girl dinner if I've ever seen it.
So this is cinnamon.
cinnamon puffs.
I was going to say, the one thing I've enjoyed moving to America is actually the amount of cinnamon sugar around.
That is great.
It's a great flavour that I
a little
don't
bit
think gets
shorter for me, I
utilised enough in the UK.
Yep, lovely cold and soggy. Quite a nice seasoning.
Yeah, it's not like hot. It looks like it's going to be very angry, but it's not particular.
It's got something.
Yeah, well, it's almost weird sort of spicy sauces with tasted in the tacos and the burritos, but it's mellowed out. It's the same seasoning, but it's not
Yeah.
the spices. And that is like a donut ball, which feels odd from a taco. I mean, to be fair, all of these feel a little odd from a taco place, but you know.
There's something in it. That's actually not bad.
No,
I like that.
That's really nice. So again, custard filled donuts, classic, and the cinnamon sugar just works.
I'm gonna grab that.
I like that. And then finally, cinnamon sugar, just French fries.
I don't associate cinnamon with savoury. I know cinnamon does go in savoury occasionally, but it's normally like a small thing.
We also found out recently that in the UK, sometimes you're sold cinnamon. It's not even cinnamon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is it?
What is it?
Oh, don't put me on the spot like that. It's bark from a very similar tree.
But they call it cinnamon.
Yeah, that sounds like a food theory right there.
I can't make heads or tails of this.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It's believable though, isn't it?
Like, again, they've clearly got a lot of... This is cinnamon. This is the only one that's not cinnamon on the side. Are you comparing the chips?
Attention to detail. Yeah, well, we want to win.
No, these are
fries.
Chunkier.
And I believe these to be bellish. What? Taco bellish.
Like bellish.
Did you create a new word? As fascinating as this is, I think it's time for you to guess. So, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. 4. And the fake item was number 4.
Yeah! Fair play, gents.
Fair play.
Let's go.
I was here. Let me just give me a quick one of these. Fair played.
Well played though, because that's tough.
To be honest, I was putting on a brave face. Not only was I devastated that none of my items were gonna make it onto the Taco Bell menu, but worst of all, I didn't manage to trick Tom a single time. Forget living mas. I'm living you. What other
Isn't this
place
exciting?
should I try to make a menu item for?
Uh-oh.
Let me know, and hopefully we'll make it onto that menu next time. But thank you again to Mike and Ben from Sorted Food for helping me out, and
I'm
not
hungry. What
helping
time is
me
it?
out today. But
I'm gonna
I
have
did do
to
a
stop
video
and get
with
food
them. It's
soon.
over on their channel. Make sure to go check it out because it was a blast. So make sure to check that out. And as always, remember, that's just a theory. A food theory! Buen provecho. And if you want to see me succeed in trying to fix a culinary disaster, click the card on screen to go watch me fix Little Caesar's awful pizza. And as always, I'll see you next week.
Just because we're not living doesn't mean we don't enjoy a good living room.
And Michael's Halloween decor really knocks him undead.
Anyone with brains knows that.
Brains. Her laugh is infectious. So is her bite.
Aussie 3-Minute Miracle gives my hair so much moisture. It detangles my hair for less breakage.
Okay, so getting in the house is the exits. That's not where we need to be. That one there says look up. But how do I get under it?
Oh, this is gonna be forever, isn't it?
The big door?
Fuck you. I'm looking for you for like an hour.
I think it is. Okay, I think I get it. So I think I need to rotate this so that that goes up and I fall through that door.
Okay, stay.
I think I get it. So now we need to get there. Get you from the sides. Oh no, I can just go straight there, I think. So now if we go up...
You're cute. I can fix that. Sure you do.
Oh, it... Yeah. I did it. I did it. I'm outside. My brain. Maybe I do something with that? Hold on. Let's go there. Do I do something with this? No, it's just an attachment point. Let's go to the one that says look up. Okay, so now we're here. Oh, there it is. Found it. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Okay, now I just need to find my way back into the cube. Can I leave now? Dude, this is wild. We're together, we're a family. I hate her for what she did. Why did she give me that camera? She took this family from me, but we're together now. She's safe. Child's painting. Oh. Okay. Oh, do I need to find the right one?
Alright, I think I'm gonna take a little break. Go get myself some to eat, put some stuff away before the rain starts. And, yeah, I think I'll be back in an hour or so. But thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll be back to working on more of these in a bit.